where did they come from? What were their names? Did we
One,
say Regina
Anna
Kaufman is your mother?
Yeah.
Saul Kaufman is your father. And now on my father's side of the family is Harry Goodell.
Harry Goodell.
And
It was Goodellwoods, you know.
Oh, that's right.
And then it was changed to Goodell. Anna and Harry. Goodell was changed to Goodell.
When they married, was it Goodellowitz?
Yes.
And then when was it changed to Goodell? It was before I was born.
Yes. When Richard was born, his name was still Goodellwitz. I changed it then, but he was already registered in school, and he had some difficulty in the army because we can't find a Goodell. We have a Goodellwitz, but when you went to school, it was just about the time I was changing the name, and I registered you as Goodell. Okay. I didn't wait. I just registered you, so you had no problem.
Okay.
Richard did.
Okay, could you tell us a little about Daddy's family, if you remember anything?
Did I tell you his name was, my father-in-law's name was Harry Goodell, and her maiden name was,
I guess.
Goodellwitz, but her maiden name was Anna Katz, and they
didn't know that.
and they had 6 children.
Yeah.
Daddy was the oldest, just like I was.
That's right.
And then they had Uncle Abe and Uncle
Hi.
and
Teddy.
Elsie and Teddy. I think he's the youngest. How many did
Milton.
Oh, Milton, who had polio, but he was a great guy. He was in business. He had his own stationery store and got around great, and quite a smart fellow.
And later on in life, he started getting very active in rights for handicapped with ramps on public buildings and such. And he married a woman who had polio.
And a bright lady, really a bright lady. And Mildred was a bright lady, really.
And they had like a true love. I'll never forget that.
They
Just
worked
like
so
said.
well together in the stationery store. They were well liked, and they did very well. And now she's retired in Florida, just like I am, and doing nicely for herself.
Okay. Where did they come from? Do you know?
Austria too. The two of them did. Yeah, they had a nice family. I met them when they lived in Rockaway Beach. They lived there all these years. But I had a very interesting life, hard to begin with, but very interesting. I went on to, after the children were all grown up and I was married, my father lived with me and all the sisters and brothers. And Seymour and Mildred were the first to get married and moved out. And then I had Richard was born, and then you were born.
In other words, Richard was born.
And my family lived with us.
Everybody except Mildred and Evelyn, who was in California.
But everybody else lived.
We had a 3-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, and
on St. John's Place.
1399 St. John's Place. President 34662 was the
remember
telephone
that.
number, and there were no area codes. That was it, the telephone number. What happened? You called the operator if you wanted to get to California?
Well, we didn't have a telephone to begin with. We used to get it downstairs in the candy store. They'd say, "Come on down,
When I was
Trudy."
born, we had a phone.
Yeah, when you were born, we had the phone. We had it when Richard was born, too. Lived in St. John's. We moved from Sumner Avenue to St. John's Place, Brooklyn. And from there to Day Hill Road.
And my father had a business, and the number was Hyacinth 71571. Don't ask me. I just know it.
Do you remember? I used to work in, well, you don't remember, but I work in that shop till, I'd take Richard home, put him to bed, go back till 12 o'clock midnight, working on that machine so we can put more of the underwear out and be able to ship it. It was really a rough, hard life then.
I usually wear my underwear in.
Then Richard was born, and only Evelyn and Mildred were out. So Faye and Phyllis and Seymour?
Yeah, lived in the house.
I didn't know that.
Sure,
I'm just learning this.
Everybody lived at home, and when you were born, they got married. after a while.
Oh.
Phyllis got married before Aunt Faye, and then
No, Aunt Faye, we had one big
I
bedroom.
think your mother's trying to tell you that Uncle Jack is really your father.
no.
I guess that explains it.
Seymour was married
That
first,
explains it.
and
Yeah,
then
this is for
lot of
posterity, so we're totally...
and then Faye. Did I ever tell you how Faye got married?
No.
She
Faye
I
went
went-
on a cross-country trip with a gentleman that
that's
you made
what-
a shitter with.
I
It
sure
paid
did.
money to share the expenses and drive the car.
You
Figured
know,
you'd ever get her to know anybody.
going in?
She'd know him on a trip across the
know,
country into
That's
California.
just what happened. They got married, and when they, by the time they came back, she said, I'm going steady. Now, she wasn't a youngster. She was almost, I think, about 37 years old. when she
Which at
started
that
going
time
with
was a
them.
terrible thing
Yeah.
for a single woman. Now in 1986, there are many single women of 36 who have their own places,
But she had
but
a
and
child.
had their own lives. But those years it was terrible. I think she lied about her age. And when I was a child and I was sleeping in the crib, I shared a bedroom with my brother who was in the bed and my Aunt Evelyn, my Aunt Faye, who was in a bed in my bedroom because a 36-year-old woman didn't have her own apartment then. And then she left, and then I had the
She
room.
married from that apartment, and she left, and she had a baby girl. And when the girl, Maxine, was 12 years old, she died. My sister Faye died. And we still see Maxine, lovely girl, and now she's got a little boy of her own. And I'm so glad that the family is extending, you know. She's got a lovely little boy. And all of them
But
were
what about-
married.
What, how old were you during the Depression, girl?
I was married in 1933.
During the
And
Depression?
Yes,
What was it,
29,
20s?
30. Yeah,
So
it
what
was
happened?
depression then, those years.
So
But
you were married and luckily Grandpa had work, so you were okay.
yeah, he worked then, and it was rough. After the place went out of business, it took him a long time to get something to do. And
No, you're not talking, it went out of business years later after I was around. It was 59 when he
Yeah,
went out of business.
56,
We're
yeah.
talking about the Depression.
Yeah, it was
But
depression in
what was it-
33.
what was it like
I
with-
worked for $25 for the two of us.
What was it like?
Between
I
the
mean,
two of us, we had $25 between the
And
two
what
of
did
us
you pay for
from
rent?
that business, $48 a month.
what do you
Not
think?
always. That was when I was
Yeah,
around.
48. I
But-
can't remember before that.
Like,
But
what
I
was
know-
it like during the Depression? Like, did you know a lot of people who were homeless and things like that?
Oh, sure.
No.
People moved in with their parents and back again, and it was very bad,
Starving
very
and stuff.
bad those days. And as I said, $25 between us, and
Well, what you told me that when you were a child, you didn't have toilet paper and you used to use the wrapping for oranges.
from oranges, your tissues from the oranges, or newspapers.
Newspaper.
And then I shared that bathroom with a couple of other neighbors on the floor.
When you were, how old?
A young girl, before, 16 maybe, 15, 16, like that. And then we moved to a house where we shared the bathroom with only the next door neighbor, so that was upgraded. Imagine that neighbor had 6 of us and she lived alone with her husband. Oh, God, she had to share it with us. And it was rough that time. It was very bad. When they were little, I remember my father gave me 50 cents to feed 6 of us 3 meals.
6 of you, 3
Yeah,
meals.
50 cents a day. Every morning he'd leave the 50 cents. So we bought sour cream, a quart of it. They used to pour it in with a measuring cup,
I'm lucky if I could buy a bag of French fries with that.
and milk, and I'd make potatoes and sour cream. That's why Seymour to this day loves it. Potatoes and sour cream all the time, or potatoes latkes, or potatoes with meat.
Now, you were 14 and her mother died, and at 18, didn't you insist that you
I
wanted
insisted.
to go?
I was taken out of school right after I graduated 8th grade. to stay home with all the children. But by 17 or 18, I started begging my father if I could go to school again, take something
And
up.
he said
But
no?
he said, no, you can't. You'll have to stay home. So I went to night school. I went to Eastern District night school.
I didn't know. It was
Yeah,
Eastern
I
District.
walked quite a walk every night, and I never had, my shoes were torn. I once got glass in my shoes, cut through walking all that distance. And my father never bought clothes for me, never. My first coat was when I was 18 years old. I got my first coat.
Why? Because he was a
Didn't have the money.
He didn't have
he
the
didn't
money.
have the money, and
he didn't care. What was it?
he didn't pay attention to those things. What do you mean you need a coat? Your aunt just sent a coat from so-and-so. Hand me down. Well, that was all right. I was grateful for it. But I wanted my own at 18. So, and then I went to work as a stenographer around the neighborhood. And he called up many times to say, you didn't cook dinner last night. You didn't do this. You burnt the pot. He brought the pot into the boss. So my boss said, well, you have a bitter life. That's when he wanted me, introduced me to Daddy. And
Did you know anybody who you're close to who ended up being drafted into one of the wars? I'm sure trying to focus on historical events.
of what?
Who ended up being drafted into one of the wars? Any one of the wars throughout your life?
Jess, I really enjoy being in a room
Okay,
with an
come in.
intelligent
Come
person.
back in.
I feel like asking.
Jess,
some-
why don't you just sit down right in between
Yeah, come
Grandma
over here.
and
No,
Mommy?
I'll sit over here on the end.
Okay, the thing
Okay.
is, that's
What was
okay.
your question?
If there was
And
anybody that I
anybody you
knew
know.
that was drafted into the wars?
Into a war, one of them.
World War, I mean?
I
can't
guess.
remember. I remember World War One.
How old were
My
you?
father was he ran
1914?
he ran out in the. I remember being a little girl and I saw this picture in the paper. He went up on top of a trolley car when it was armistice. Yeah, I remember.
But what about the second one? Did you know? Was it going?
Yeah.
So did you know
18.
somebody?
I was about 8 years old.
But didn't you know, like, did you have like a boyfriend or somebody you knew?
Oh no, I was 8 years old.
Oh, 8? I thought you said
Yeah.
18.
8.
But no, I mean
Oh,
for the
did-
Second World War.
I only remember when
I
Seymour
remember,
went to
yes,
war.
and I remember you were friends with a girl who smoked cigarettes. What happened?
My father did not want me to be friendly with my best friend, Lena Horowitz. I was crazy about her, but he forbid me to go with her
So
because
what'd
she
you do?
smokes.
Well, wait a minute.
Oh,
It was
her
a sister.
Her older sister smoked. So then she wasn't good because she was a bum. She used lipstick. And so she was a bum, so I couldn't go. I was beaten up for that.
What do you mean?
But I went with her anyway. I
Didn't you
loved her.
take a paycheck of $21 or $18
No,
and spend?
my first job was, I made $12 a week. And he took the entire thing. But I begged him for the $1. I got $1 out of it. And somehow I saved up $12 and bought one pair of shoes. You know, one pair of shoes was a baby python, beautiful high heels. It was beautiful. I spent a whole week's salary on it. My
You
grandmother,
remember your grandma?
yeah. My grandmother, my father's mother, her name was Bella Kaufman, and she was quite a lady because she would, in those days nobody worked, the women never worked, and she was selling tea, packaged tea from her house with special customers would come up and get this tea. They didn't pack it, I don't think they packaged tea in those days. It was all loose. So she bagged them, weighed them, and had special customers for that tea. She was a working woman in those years, in 1915 and 16. I remember going to her house. She looked like a very old lady, but she wasn't, because they all wore babushkas, you know, and you never saw her
Never
hair.
went for babushkas.
A babushka is a scarf that today the girls wear, the babushkas. What do they call them? They tie the handkerchiefs. Kerchiefs. And I never saw her hair. That's how, I remember her all the time. we'd all have to go over, take turns and shine her candlesticks years ago. And
Tell, tell us about you. Then at 18,
then at 18,
went to-
well, my life was, my, my father came first and the grandmother came first, and I had to do everything my father said I had to do. I had to listen to him. He said, you take care of the children and you bathe them. I had to do it. I never was able to go out. I never went out with boys and girls when I was 15, 16, never. I always stayed home. After a while, I begged my father if I can go to school, and he sent me to business school. And I learned stenography, typing, and I'll never forget my father said to me the day I graduated, well, don't forget, go out for a job. And I didn't go the first day, so he came home that night and said, I got a job for you. My friend needs a bookkeeper in. That means bookkeeper in Jewish. Bookkeeper in. And I have a job for you. I said, Papa, I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm a stenographer.